Shalom. What's been going on in Iran? What's going on in Gaza? Let's talk about it all. Today I'm coming at you without a script, without a plan, just spontaneous, because I wanted to talk about military aid to Israel, the U.S. military aid, but we'll save that for next week, and we'll talk about Iran. What's been going on? Well, it's edging closer and closer. Donald Trump continues to say that there will be help for the protesters, and that the U.S. will intervene, although yesterday he said that as far as he's aware, the killings have stopped, but based on June's 12-day war, on the day that the war broke out, that Israel attacked, Donald Trump said that he prefers diplomacy. So, what he says could very well be intentional misdirection, since obviously he has a lot of good information, a lot of advisors, a lot of experts. He knows a lot more than we do. For the last 160 hours, there has not been any internet in Iran, so news has been coming out only from the government, which says that the protests are over, they have full control, the death toll is in the hundreds, which is a lie, because 2 days ago official government statements said that it was in the thousands, and unofficial is well in the tens of thousands. Last night, there was complete aerial blockade on Iran and also on most of Iraq and Syria. There were no planes flying. The country closed its airspace. Why is that? Because in the 12-day war, Israel destroyed their radar, so they're unable to distinguish between hostile and non-hostile airplanes. So in order to defend themselves, they have to close the entire airspace, because that way they can shoot anything that enters their airspace. Not that they would be able to shoot down anything American, and they were very unsuccessful to shoot down anything Israeli in the 12-day war. What else? USS carrier Truman is in the North Red Sea. It's not exactly in the Gulf area, because the Gulf is a little more condensed and would make it more of a sit-and duck. Might I remind you that a U.S. aircraft carrier group is a vast armada and not just a single ship. It's got in the range of 50 to 100 fighter planes, as well as many additional boats, missile boats, and so on. In addition to that, the USS Lincoln is rapidly moving from the East China Ocean to the Gulf, the Persian Gulf. It will be there in estimates are 5 days. We will see. That might explain the delay in Donald Trump's response to Iran, but we'll have to wait and see. Obviously, as an Israeli, I'm aware that United States attack on Iran will bring an Iranian retaliation to Israel, because that's how their logic works. Same happened in Iraq with Saddam Hussein. The United States attacks Saddam Hussein, so what does Saddam Hussein do? He attacks Israel. But anyways, additionally, U.S. non-essential personnel have been moved out of many of their bases in the region, in the Middle East, in Qatar, and so on. And Iran has threatened Qatar and Saudi Arabia and the Emirates that if the U.S. attacks them, they will retaliate against their neighbors. Obviously, as an Israeli, I know that Iran will strike at Israel, but unfortunately, that may be the price in order to dispose of this awful regime that for the last 50 years has been, almost 50 years, has been torturing and repressing its own citizens. The crown prince, the son of the last Shah, said that as soon as the Ayatollahs fall, they will recognize Israel, make peace with Israel, join the Abraham's Accords, and even make their own Koresh Accords with Israel and have a wonderful peace with them. I don't know if it's true, but it is possible. It's certainly what he would desire. He's visited Israel, he's a friend of Israel, but we'll see if that is something that could be pulled off. What else? When Iran attacks Israel, which will happen, it will be smaller barrages than the last time, because they have less missile launchers. Their missile supplies, their stock of missiles is up to what it was before, which is unfortunate, but their missile launchers were destroyed and they've not been able to recover. They probably have about 40 to 60% compared to the last war, which means the volleys will be smaller and easier to manage. Now, that said, there will be buildings hit, there will be casualties. It is unfortunate. They also learned from their own experience how to better aim. We saw that at the end of the war, despite smaller volleys, there was still considerable damage. But as said, that's the price that has to be paid. So what are we looking at? Well, if I had to guess, I would say that there are 4 possibilities. 1, within the next few days, this weekend, the United States will strike Iran and the whole thing will start. 2, the pressure by the neighbors and allies of Iran will be to delay and try diplomatic means, and it'll take about 2 weeks. And within those 2 weeks, options 2 and 3 could happen. 1, that Iran totally gets rid of the protests, kills everyone that is protesting against it, gets control, and is able to stabilize the situation so that the U.S. is convinced to let it go. And then we go back to what it was before. Or 2, despite their attempts and the diplomatic delays, that the protests will continue and news will come out from it. I mentioned that there's been a 160-hour internet blackout. Elon Musk is working with his teams to alleviate that problem. We'll see if he succeeds. In any case, if news keeps coming out of people dying and the protests continuing, then what could happen in the next few days might be delayed a few weeks. And the 4th option slips my mind at the moment, so we'll pretend I didn't say it. Let's say there were 3 options. Let's move on quickly to Gaza. Yesterday, Steve Witkoff, Trump's envoy to the area and chief negotiator, declared that we have reached phase 2 of Trump's 20-point plan. It is that phase 2 means the disarmament of Hamas and the technocratic governance of Gaza and rebuilding of Gaza. And it assumed that phase 1 was successful, in other words, a ceasefire and the return of all hostages and remains of hostages. The ceasefire, of course, is not entirely successful. Just yesterday, 6 Gazans tried to cross into Israeli territory. 2 of them were killed. I don't know what happened to the rest off the top of my head. And of course, we're still waiting for the returns of the remains of Ran Gvili, who is still in Gaza. So while phase 1 isn't entirely complete, Steve Witkoff declared that phase 2 is starting. What does that mean? Well, nothing. Because Hamas is not going to disarm. And the Islamic Jihad is not going to disarm. So I don't expect any practical change on the ground, but it was a very nice declarative statement. We'll see how that develops. As I said, next time, unless there's a major news report, we will talk about the U.S. military aid to Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu's claim that within 10 years Israel will wean itself off it and what all that is about. But before I finish, I want to make a quick shout out to Brian and Karen Massey from Houses of Healing in Abilene. And thank you so much for my new digs, the jacket, the tie, the shirt. Highly appreciated. Hopefully what you called it will in fact come true. That's a secret for everyone else, but maybe I'll answer in the comments. God bless you all. Shalom.